Hi, I'm Megan Luther,
Hi, I'm Bernell Quinn.
and we are The Simple Life. Today we are going to discuss some hot button topics.
Our favorite topic, the topic
Yes.
everybody loves the most.
Taxes.
Taxes.
Ugh. So we wanted to chat a little bit about, first of all, this one seems a bit more far-fetched, and everybody is of the understanding that it would never pass, but it's the unrealized capital gains tax. So chat a little bit with me about that, Pernell.
Well, as I've mentioned before, my dad is quite the historian and he loved to beat things into our head as a child. So if you think about the tax, it's really for the 1%, right? The
That is-
100 million plus
What they're proposing.
unreal capital gains.
The
most
real,
likely,
real wealthy, the billionaires.
Yeah.
So it all sounds good to us little peons down here.
That's right. It sounds good to the people that are still working for a living. The downside to it is if you look at income tax, it originally started for
The wealthy.
the wealthy, the top 1%.
Mm-hmm.
And then the government said, wow, we're making a lot of money. How do
And or a war came, and they had an excuse to.
they needed to fund the war machine, so
Right.
they made that the reason that they taxed everybody,
Right.
all the way down to somebody making, well, back in the day, what would be equivalent to $30,000 a year now or $20,000 a year now.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I don't know how much they were making. That wasn't beaten into my head. So
We'll call this one a gateway tax.
yes, it's a gateway tax. Yeah.
So, hopefully people see through that, and more taxes is not the answer. So we're cautiously optimistic that nothing like an unrealized capital gain would ever get through the legislation and impact us, because at a certain point it will impact us all. It's never ever what they intend.
And let's talk about the taxes that will get through legislation.
Love it.
And a lot of reasons these next couple taxes we're going to talk about are going to get through legislation is the people that own the homes don't have the right to vote in the communities they're going to be taxed in.
Such a nasty trick. So you are talking about the vacancy tax and additionally a transfer tax.
Right.
And the easy one is the transfer tax. A lot of smaller mountain towns specifically already have that.
Yes.
Winter Park is one.
Right. And
There's a 1% tax on any real estate transfer.
right. And as long as that 1% is hard to find of what it goes to, the 1% to 2% makes sense. The problem is when a town says we're going to do a 1% transfer tax and they don't really specify it's for this purpose only. They kind of put it in a general fund, but not a general fund. And then the taxes never seem to go to where it really needed to go.
Right. We've seen that before, especially in our community, where a specific amendment passes or statute, and it's generally, like you said, supposed to go towards this concept.
Yeah, let's say workforce housing, because that's
Exactly.
the hot topic right now.
Right.
So workforce housing is one of the big things.
And how much workforce housing and or what they like to call affordable housing, which never ends up being actually affordable, has
Right.
been created since all these new taxes have been in place and entities have been established.
Yeah, so far in the county, Grand County, only Winter Park has done some local housing. They actually made it for sale, which is very rare when you look at workforce housing, affordable housing. And then you have people like Grand Park, who's run by Clark Lipscomb. He's built 60 units. He houses like 300 people in the other units that he's bought to rent out. And then he's building another 400 units, varying from 1 bedrooms, possibly studios, but I believe it's 1 bedrooms to 3 bedroom units that him and his company will be building over the next couple of years. Talking with them, one of the fears is with workforce housing taxes is it's a trap. They can never get out.
Correct.
They pay the highest rent they can pay to live in a ski town, to enjoy the town, or in a lake community or
Just tourist,
A tourist
a
area,
destination community.
destination community. So they pay as much rent as they can because that's where they want to live and they want to be in the nicest place they can. They never save up and are able to move out.
Right.
So the transfer tax can be very good
Yep.
if it's used for the right things.
Right.
And if you're trying to do workforce housing and employee housing, the only restriction you should have is that it's workforce.
Right. The person that's obtaining the benefit of this housing.
Lives in and works in the area.
Right. Because then the idea is it stimulates this local economy as well.
Yes, right. And so going to stimulating the local economy, The next one is a vacancy tax. Now, this one is very popular with everybody that lives in ski towns, because one of the things we're very upset with is we pay for all of these utilities, and I say we because we actually live in the town of Fraser. We pay for all these utilities on all of the homes, and they sit vacant. So we have sewer lines, water lines, gas lines, power lines, roads, going to houses that need to be plowed, maintained. Sewer lines need to be cleaned. Some water lines need to be what they call blown out. That's when you get a dead spot in the line and you got to flush the line. So all of those things happen, and there's no revenue generated from those homes.
Right.
So the vacancy tax sounds like it's a bad idea, but it could really be a good idea.
Okay.
Now, where is it a bad idea, Megan?
I'm just generally never up for saying yes to more taxes. I think overall our society, it's kind of lost the plot. We get taxed a lot, and I think our governments don't always, again, it's well intentioned, but the end result is not what was originally intended.
Right.
So I struggle with that, of coughing up more of our hard-earned money to trust somebody else to do with it what I think they're going to do with it.
And what they think is that because they put in a vacancy tax, people are going to rent their houses out more to locals, which is not the case. The people that don't have to rent out their houses or don't want to rent out their houses, it's not going to be an issue paying the taxes.
Right.
And the question is, what is a term vacancy? How long does your house have to sit vacant?
Right.
Before it's considered taxable?
So again, to your point earlier, well-established, clear guidelines for what it means. What does vacant mean?
And where does that money go?
Yeah.
Because it's something that's not a tax that we've all seen and everybody's upset about is Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
So back in 1968, the government decided to take Social Security and put it into the general tax fund. Now the government considers paying the money back to the people that actually invested in the money to give us our money back. They consider that the second or third largest expense for the federal government. So that's why you have to be very cautious with your taxes. We need the taxes to go to a very specific fund, and only out of that fund can things be done. We currently have 5 housing authority boards in Grand County. They have projects that they claim are coming out of the ground, but those were all done prior to this housing authority got put together.
Right. These projects have been in the work for decades, and now the housing authorities are stepping in to.
Yeah, they're there, and so they're claiming, the stuff out in Granby. We've got some housing coming out there. So in the next 2 years, we should have 300 to 600 new workforce housing properties on the market. Again, the government needs to know who their clientele is and why they're building the housing. A lot of them want to build 3-bedroom houses, 3-bedroom units, and charge $3,700 a month for them.
Yeah, not so affordable for the locals that they're trying to house.
It's not affordable for locals.
Right. Yeah, so initially, the taxes that we do pay, for the government overall was infrastructure, right? Our water, sewer, roads, it's all the connectivity. And now they're just in so many other facets. So having housing authorities in different specialty groups is, can be very helpful. We have to be careful, because it's like you're throwing good money after bad sometimes, and things aren't actually getting done.
Yeah. So like the taxes in Fraser, for example, are supposed to go to fixing the water and sewer lines. They found a leak that had been going on for 17 years, cost the town $1 million in water. Well, now they believe there's 4 or 5 other leaks in Old Town Fraser.
Right.
And their solution is to raise the fees instead of going out and selling bonds and fixing the issue now, which would lower the cost of the water system. They're thinking, let's let it deteriorate more while we try to build up a fund through fees and taxes.
Yeah.
So it's a hard thing to figure out what's the best way to do it.
Right.
I'm with you. I believe we're becoming tax slaves, and that is the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah. So back to the transfer tax, it obviously has worked in some areas. It's a big revenue producer.
Yeah.
And those who can tend to afford a second home in our area, like you said, they can afford to pay that tax. It's
Right.
just the cost of doing business. A vacancy tax, again, could be good.
Could be terrible.
Could be terrible. That'll to be determined, because to your point, the people with second homes up here, they'll pay the tax. They don't
Right.
want that can afford it, that want to use it for themselves, and maybe they only use it a couple times a year.
Right. We have a lot of locals that work in 2 different industries. They've gotten older, their knees aren't as good, so they don't stay here in the wintertime, right?
Right.
So they go to other resort areas and they do similar jobs, but they're not in the cold, so their body doesn't hurt as much.
Mhm.
Or vice versa, right? They come out of the hot and they come up to the cold. Those houses may sit vacant for 6 months. They're not going to be able to afford the vacancy tax,
Right.
which is going to force them to either let somebody live in their home, their primary home where they live all the time,
Yeah.
or they're going to have to rent it out nightly.
Yep.
Either way, it doesn't help the locals
Right.
with their issue.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff has unintended consequences, and that's where we all as a community just need to come together, ask more questions, get involved, and really talk to your legislature, your legislative people, and make sure that you understand the ramifications of some of these taxes.
Yeah, right. And how it'll affect your property values in the future.
So Parnell and I really love having these conversations. If you guys have any additional questions, please reach out.